Hello everyone, Moro here once again with another logo designing video. If you are one of the people who don't already know, I actually have professional experience as a graphic designer, and I've designed many logos before throughout my career. In this episode, I will be teaching you my personal method of manipulating fonts to take on more fun and organic shapes, just like how I did with this logo here that I made for my Monty School craft project from that video you saw a few weeks ago. What are monoschools? Well, I implore you to check out my last video upload where I sculpt a set of monster keychains with paper mache. They are small, of course, so I combined the words minuscule and monster together to create this name for my creations. This is the logo I made, showcasing both the brand's name and some fun design elements to go into it. How did I arrive to this design though? I will show you. Unless you are simply designing an icon for a logo, usually there is some text involved displaying the brand's name. Text cannot simply exist without a font, however. So I will search for a font that fits the theme of the brand the most. Obviously, since the brand I am working with involves monsters, I need to find a font that encapsulates exactly that. You should find at least 3 fonts to look at. Here I found 3 fonts that I liked and that I thought fit the monster theme the best. Now I have to decide which one amongst them that I like the most. Please note that it is very important to pay attention to the copyright status of the font. Unless you are willing to pay for a font's license, you should be looking for 100% free fonts. Fonts that are free for commercial use, or at least free for personal use if you plan to only use it in a personal project. I am not sure if I will go into commercially using this logo, so just in case, I am looking only for fonts that I can use both personally and commercially. I really like this font called Castle Dracustein, or Dracustein. I think it's Dracustein like Frankenstein, so I'm just going to say that. I am using this site called 1001 Free Fonts to source my fonts, and they are pretty good at informing the user the copyright status of the font. However, I have noticed a few fonts in the past where they stated the font was free to use, but upon further research, like when visiting the font's creator's website, sometimes I noticed it would say free for only personal use, or donation required, or license required. It is always good to double check with the author, so here I found the font's creator's website, and right there on the author's front page, it says we can use their font for personal and commercial use as long as we don't claim them as the original creator. I am going to proceed now to download and use this font as I wish, since I know I can do that. Now let's open up a new blank canvas in Adobe Illustrator or your vector-based program of choice. If you want to know some free and low-cost vector creation and editing software, please check out my Vtuber logo creation process video on my channel. I will link it in the description. I usually start with a standard US letter size page, but really you can use just about any size. Since we are working with vectors, the size of the canvas is not critical, because vector graphics are infinitely resizable without losing any resolution along the way. Starting with just the letters first, I type out my brand name, and will modify it from here. I've installed the font I will be using in the background. If you need help with that, well, it's quite simple. You just double-click on the Open Type Font File or True Type Font File, and click on the Install button once that pop-up appears. I search for my font, and there it is, the Castle Dracustein font, applied to my word. Already looking not too bad, better than any old basic font, but it's still rather plain. Remember to duplicate the stages of your font creation process that you might want to go back to later. You never know if you may need to do that. Here, I just copied the typable version of the logo and set it aside off the canvas for now, in case I want to add, take away, or change a character later on. Now I know I want to modify the individual characters of this font, so I go to Type, create outlines from the top drop-down menu. I have no clue why my video recording program didn't capture the drop-down menu. Oh well, I guess. Now, I had an idea in my head of how I wanted to manipulate this font to get the look of what I wanted it. My idea was to warp each individual letter into a unique shape, but after trying out many tools in Illustrator that were within my knowledge, none of them were working out. I am certain that there are tools within Illustrator that would have helped me achieve what I wanted, but they were beyond what I know of the program, at least at the moment. When in doubt, go with the programs and tools that you already are familiar with. In this case, Photoshop. For me, that is. Having both programs open now, I just casually copy the vector in Illustrator, open up another 8.5 inch by 11 inch canvas in Photoshop and paste. I paste it as an image, not as a vector, because I want maximum manipulation powers. Now, what am I doing here? I am using the lasso tool to select individual sections of the letters, right-clicking and selecting the warp option. Again, sorry for no menus. I don't know why they're not showing. You will just have to pay attention to what I am describing that I am doing when I am opening a menu in these image editing programs. In Transform Warp mode, pull on the corners of the blue mesh, the Beziers, or any part of the mesh really, until you achieve the desired shape of the letters. My goal? I want the wording in the font to be in the shape of a lizard-like monster, so I am going to keep on warping the text until I can achieve that look. Warping is completely experimental. You just have to keep on playing with it, pulling it in different directions until you achieve the shape that you desire. Remember, you can always hit the Ctrl and Z keys together to undo the last step, or Ctrl, Shift, and Z keys to redo the last undone step. Now, why am I shaping this font in Photoshop, you ask? It will no longer be a vector, right? An infinitely resizable graphic, but rather a rasterized image in Photoshop? That is true, but once I am finished warping this graphic into its final shape that I want it to be in, I will bring it back into Adobe Illustrator and I will be using a neat little tool called the Image Trace tool. Basically, that tool will trace whatever image you have imported in and vectorize it. It doesn't work very well with detailed images or colored images, but it works extremely well with simple black and white images. This warp lettering I am creating here now in Photoshop should be simple enough for Illustrator's image trace function to read adequately. What shapes am I going for here? Well, the front end of this M in the word minuscules is going to be my lizard monster's tail, and the other end of the M, O, and the front end of the N are going to form the back legs of this monster. C. Now the L and E letters of this logo will be warped to shape the lizard monster's front legs. And all of the middle letters will arch upwards to create the back and belly of the beast. Notice here, I am lassoing multiple letters at once. You can do that if you know you want to warp a number of images or sections of the image all together at once. This S at the end will be the head of the beast. Its shape is very reptilian head-like. I think I can make good use of it to achieve the look I want with enough manipulation. The L and E of the minuscules word will form the front leg. As you can see, as I am drawing this foot here with the brush tool, I am drawing it very roughly. I am trying to match the very rough and blotchy aesthetic of the Drakenstein font so that it fits right in. Once I am done with the front leg, time to apply the same logic to the foot on the back leg. Already coming together. See? Now time to revisit the tail and add on to it. I don't seem to have enough material from the front end of the M to work with, so I have to once again add some more length to it with the paintbrush. I also want to reiterate the importance of working in black and white first when you are making a logo. Logos need to be legible first and foremost. In order to achieve that, high contrast is needed. You can achieve high contrast in your design if you start off working in black and white. You will avoid being distracted by colors and fancy effects like drop shadows, gradients, etc. Such effects aren't always necessarily bad, but they should be added once the design has already been solidified. Sometimes you may want to have alternate versions of the logo as well, for different applications where sometimes a drop shadow may be necessary or unnecessary. Now my logo is feeling a bit long. My lizard is long, more like a wiener dog than a fearsome beast. So I'm going to warp sections of the logo once again to tighten this design up a bit. I also want to emphasize that this creature is more than just an ordinary lizard. This is a monstrous lizard. How do I achieve that? I think I will add some protruding spikes on top of his spine, continuing to replicate that blotchy, roughly painted look that is present throughout the logo wording. It'll make him look much fiercer. Now I am going to both erase some areas from the front and add some shapes to it to create the mouth of the beast. I also had the great idea to add a chain to his leg that looks like a keychain ring. This will relate back to what the product is, monster keychains. These red lines that I am painting are simply guides for myself. I want to know the directional flow for the chain so that I can draw the actual chain pattern on top of it. Once again, making the design feel very roughly painted to reinforce the aesthetic of the whole design. And well, I think I've done it. I finished the base of the design. In general, this is how I want the logo to look. But remember, this is still Photoshop. It is only a rasterized image. Now I am going to go save as and save it as a JPEG with a white background. Then going back to Adobe Illustrator, I'm going to go back to my original logo canvas I had started working on, and I'm going to go to File, Place, and search for the JPEG I had just saved in File Explorer. Great, now I have it on my canvas. However, it is still a JPEG, not a vector. Not yet it is. Now pay close attention as to what I am going to do, because remember, the drop-down menus didn't get recorded properly. Select the image, go to the top bar and select Object, select Image Trace, Make. Now, your black and white image has been converted to a black and white vector. You can further modify the outcome using the new image tracing toolbar that has now appeared above. You can play around with the contrast of the trace to get more or less black or white. There are other options for tracing non-black and white images, but those don't always lead to good results. Tracing black and white images often has the best outcomes. Notice, however, that the white spaces have their own vector shapes as well. Now you can go around and start deleting these one by one, selecting them and pressing the delete key, or you can select just one white space, go to the top bar and select Same, Appearance, or Appearance and Stroke, and then press the delete key. And then all of your white vector shapes should be deleted, leaving you only with the black vector shapes, which is what I want. Sometimes when you image trace something in Illustrator, you might want to go in and make further adjustments. Here, I am not quite satisfied with the lack of bumpiness present on the spikes, so I'm going to take the blob brush tool and add that sort of effect that I want. I like how it's looking so far, but I think I'm going to make a few more slight adjustments, since I suspect there will be a chance that I will want to go back to a previous state. I will copy my logo here and make some changes just to the new one. That way I can also compare my progress more easily to what I have done previously and see if I like it. Now that black and white version of the font has been finalized, I can go ahead and add some color. I am thinking I want my lizard shape to have a speckly scale-like design to it. Not quite a scaly pattern, I'm feeling more of a speckled one for some reason. An important lesson, always find ways to save your time. Instead of creating a bunch of dots myself, I searched up a royalty-free vector on the free image site called Pixabay and found this exact pattern I was looking for. Yes, I know this is a speckled version of the map of Germany, but I can work with this. Just watch and see what I do with it. I open up the speckled version of Germany in Adobe Illustrator and copy and paste it into the canvas where my logo currently is. I drag it and put it beneath my design, and selecting both one of the letters and the Germany map, I go to the Object drop-down menu in the top bar, select Object, Clipping Mask, Make. Now the pattern is inside the letter M, as you see. Now I need to rearrange it and change the colors to something that matches the theme more. Since my design is that of a lizard monster, I will go with a variety of greens. I will use a darker green for the lower dots on the logo, a medium green for the middle dots, and a light green for the dots on the top, creating this nice gradient effect. Since I have established how I generally want this color to look on this letter M, I will make a copy of the set of patterns and colors inside the logo, copy it and paste it outside off the canvas, and keep on copying it from there and making new clipping masks with that for each letter. Adjust the color and pattern within each letter ever so slightly. My apologies for the reduced size of the Illustrator workspace all of a sudden. I was out and about for this last section of my workflow, so I had to finish my logo on my laptop, which is a smaller screen than my desktop. For the spikes, I wanted to repeat the speckled pattern throughout the design, so I pasted the same pattern I've been using into the spike shapes, but I changed the colors. Instead, I reversed the gradient for an overall darker look to differentiate the spikes from the main body of the creature. And even though the chain is not scaly, I decided to apply the same dotted pattern anyways to the inside of the chain shape, instead using varying gray shades. And that's it, another logo done. I had lots of fun with this one, making a very fun and silly monster design like this. If you are making a logo for a client, typically you will save and export it as a variety of file types of various sizes like SVG, JPEG, PNG, etc. Since this logo is once again just for myself, I will only have this Adobe Illustrator file version of it. I like to simply copy and paste it directly from the Illustrator program into other programs like Photoshop, etc., and use them in whichever other project I am currently working on. Hypothetically, I would still send a client the Adobe Illustrator file once I am done a logo project like this, but oftentimes clients don't own the Adobe Illustrator program and cannot open the file unless they too are a design company to some capacity. That's why you always send them the other more common file types, where they can open and use them in any program however they please. Anyways, I really had lots of fun making this logo, and I hope you too enjoyed seeing my monster come to life. I hope you learned something and or are inspired to also create something fun and amazing. Thank you for joining me once again. See you tomorrow, whenever that might be. Bye-bye!